Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm Angela, and I am thrilled to be here today with Craig Meriweather. And he is a certified clinical hypnotherapist and the founder of Sacred Mystery Hypnotherapy, where he helps clients explore deep healing, subconscious transformation, and the timeless journey of the soul through past life regression and spiritual hypnotherapy. He's also the director of Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy for over 12 years. He's been helping people heal from early childhood trauma, helping cancer patients with pain control, veterans with post traumatic stress disorder, students with test anxiety, entrepreneurs with confidence, athletes with peak performance, and anyone who may be dealing with overwhelm, fear, and anxiety. So thank you, Craig, for being here today. I know
Oh, thank
there's,
you, Angela. I appreciate
yeah,
it. Yeah.
yeah, I know that there's lots more to discover. There's, a whole list of things that I didn't say there about you. But I think we'll get into that in the
Yeah.
discussion a little bit more about your background and your expertise. And so, what we're looking at today is just what you can do as far as hypnotherapy and past life regression to help people with grief. And when I was reading, you work with anxiety and
Mhm.
depression and that sort of thing. And I know that often happens with people in grief. And so, um, maybe just, I know that people maybe are aware of hypnotherapy, but explain a little bit more about that. And then we'll want to hear more about the past life regression as well.
Yeah. Yeah, sure. Well, yeah, it's a big topic. We could spend 5 hours talking about this and still probably
Yeah.
just touch the surface of it because really what we're working with is the subconscious mind. And grief is different for everybody. People take the time they need to heal from loss. And no matter what the DMS-5 says about, what is healthy and what is not. I think people take the time they need, whether that's months or years to heal from a loss. But there can be aspects of that healing that can happen maybe in a shorter time, like dealing with maybe the anxiety around the loss or the depression. Some things that maybe make it hard to get out of bed in the morning.
Mm.
And certainly hypnotherapy can help with that in that those are, you know, messages coming from the subconscious mind. A lot of this stuff, of course, is unconscious in life. Um, you don't have to think about healing that cut on your finger or the scrape on your knee. Somebody scrapes up their knee and scab forms and the antibodies, all head to that area. They know exactly where to go. The new tissues form, the new skin is formed, and a week later, no, you can't remember even where the scrape was. You don't have to think about that. Somebody breaks their leg skiing or snowboarding or something. You don't have to think about, oh, you fuse that bone, fuse that bone. It just happens in an automatic manner, just like you're digesting your lunch, you're beating your heart, and of course you have those habits that we have of tying your shoes and walking down the street and riding a bicycle and all those things. But one of the main jobs of the subconscious mind is to keep you safe and protected. And part of that is one of the ways it does is by holding on to old hurt and pain that we may have experienced. And whether that happened when you were a little kid or happened yesterday, wants to hold on to it as a form of protection, sort of armoring yourself. Unfortunately, it might not be a very efficient way of doing that, not efficient way of survival, because it can be exhausting to hold on to this, especially for years, of sometimes decades, to hold on to that hurt and pain. Well, it's just kind of the evolution of being a human that we hold on to that. It doesn't mean it's the most efficient way of keeping yourself safe. And that's where hypnotherapy can come in terms of allowing you to release that hurt and pain, almost like you have files in a filing cabinet.
Mm.
Well, you're the one who put those files in there, not to say that was your fault or that you wanted that traumatic experience, But it becomes empowering when you realize, well, if you're the one who's holding on to that hurt and pain, you're the one who has those files and filing cabinet, that means you can get rid of them, or you can do something about them. You can amend them or edit them, or put them in a safer place or something, because it's your subconscious mind. And so you're allowed to change the coding, if you will, the kind of computer coding of it. And the issue around keeping us safe and protected is the warning signals that we may get when the mind thinks there's danger in your external world. We'll get these warning signals, sort of like someone's pulling the fire alarm in the building. You get the sirens, you get the lights, warning people that there's danger, you need to get to safety. Well, we also have a warning system, but instead of sirens and lights, we have feeling states. So the feeling state of anxiety, the feeling state of anger or fear or worry or overwhelm, sadness even, can be a warning that there's danger. There's something that may be hurtful in your external environment and wants to protect you from that because it's experienced it in the past. Here's a whole filing cabinet full of hurt and pain. Yes, look, we've experienced hurt and pain just like this, or similar to it, or sort of kind of like it 30 years ago. We don't want to do it again. So let's warn everybody that there's danger. We'll turn up the volume on the anxiety and the fear. Well, again, maybe not the most efficient way of running things. And it may be that the danger is kind of imagined and maybe not a true threat. This is most noticeable when somebody's having a nightmare. The mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined. And like somebody's having a nightmare, it could be very realistic. Like, maybe somebody was in a horrible car accident and is reliving that imagery over and over again in a nightmare, or maybe somebody, veteran remembering the front lines of a war, even though that was 30 years ago. It can be very realistic. Or maybe something ridiculous, something implausible, something kind of dumb, like a cheeseburger's chasing down the street throwing coconuts at you. It's kind of dumb. But the mind can't tell the difference between what's real and what's imagined, and whether maybe it's running some sort of simulation or to help protect you in case it happens again, sort of like a flight simulator, like a pilot may use to learn how to fly into Heathrow Airport or something. It's maybe doing that, or maybe just trying to correlate information of the day, of the week. Whenever it's doing this crazy, ridiculous dream, it's imagined, but it'll turn on the stress response. And not an efficient and a very easy thing to do. The brain has to create the adrenaline, the cortisol, dump that into your bloodstream. Your heart starts racing to get it to all the big muscles of your legs and to your arms. Start breathing shallowly because you want that quick oxygen to the big muscles of the arms and legs. 300% more blood moving to the big muscles of the arms to fight your way out of this cheeseburger situation, and legs to run away from it. It's got to turn down the power of your immune system, your digestive system. Again, not an easy way, not an efficient way of running the body. It'll do it because it thinks you're in trouble. So it has this shoot first, ask questions later.
Mm-hmm.
That's a nightmare, a ridiculous nightmare happening in the middle of the night. So you imagine what's happening in your waking world. And so the subconscious mind, yes, it's running your immune system, your digestive system, it's holding on to those habits that we have, but it's also this kind of emotionalized mind that is holding on to hurt and pain to protect us, to keep us safe. It's not against you. It may seem like that sometimes, but it's not against you. It's trying to keep you safe, it's trying to keep you protected. Well, that's the subconscious mind. The conscious mind is the logical mind, the analytical mind, the mind uh, that creates our plans, the goals to achieve our plans, the willpower to go after those goals. Well, what neuroscience says is that conscious mind only makes up 5% of mind. Subconscious mind makes up 95% of mind. So when there's conflict between the logical mind and the emotional mind, the emotional mind wins every time. And
Mm-hmm.
that's why a lot of this stuff doesn't have to make any sense. It doesn't have to make sense that you're still frightened over something that happened 30 years ago. It doesn't have to make sense that you're still grieving, even though it's been 3, 4 years. It's
Mm-hmm.
the emotional mind that's handling this. But what becomes empowering is realizing that you're allowed to change the coding in the subconscious mind. That is maybe, consistently turning on that anxiety response or the sadness or the fear. And that's where hypnotherapy comes in. And it's not that I fix anybody, not that I'm doing the healing. It's not that hypnotherapy is fixing anyone. You're going to fix yourself. Because who better to know what the problem is than you? And more importantly, who better to know what to do about it than you? Just like you know how to fix the cut on your finger, heal a broken bone, digest your sandwich. beats your heart, all these things. Turn on the stress response when you need it, like you're walking and a bear's running at you, or this, whatever's happening, like a real threat turns on automatically. You know how to do this stuff. And so you're also allowed to give yourself permission to heal this stuff. And that's why can be a very powerful technique, therapeutic hypnosis. And it's not control, it's not mind control. I know there's unfortunately a lot of myths and misconceptions. What people see on TV, people doing silly things, or getting hypnotized to assassinate the prime minister or something like that. It's not how it works. But you
Hmm.
can't make anybody do anything they don't want to do. That's why smoking cessation, something hypnotherapy is very famous for, helping people to quit smoking. It's not 100% guaranteed, because if they don't want to quit smoking, they're not going to quit. That's why I can't walk into Las Vegas casinos and just hypnotize people to quit smoking and everybody
Hmm.
be healthy and everybody be happier.
Yeah.
I can't go into prisons and hypnotize everybody to be law-abiding, upstanding citizens and shut down the prison industry. I can't get Elon Musk to write me a billion dollar check. And the reason I don't have a billion-dollar check from Elon Musk is because he doesn't want to write me one.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
no matter how much hypnosis is thrown at him, he's not just going to start handing out billion-dollar checks. So people see those shows, though, in Las Vegas, or comedy clubs, or on YouTube videos, and there's people up on stage, and they're under mind control because they're dancing like Michael Jackson, and singing like Elvis Presley, and barking like dogs and quacking like ducks for the entertainment of people. And every single person up on that stage volunteered to get up there because
Hmm.
they want to be up there. They want to be part of the show. They want to be the star of the show. They're extroverts. They're exhibitionists. The hypnotist has to do a good show. It's pretty expensive nowadays to go to a show in Vegas or in a comedy club. So they're going to have to do a good show. So who are they going to pick? The introvert in the back of the room, hiding in the shadows, sinking down in their chair because they don't want to be noticed, or the person who's jumping up and down, waving their arms, saying, "Pick me, pick me." It's
Hmm.
like someone's going to give a better show because they want to be a part of the show, and whether they're faking it because they're not hypnotized, or they're really in some sort of state where they're just, every time I say the king of rock and roll, you'll sing like Elvis Presley, and they do it. uh, they want to be a part of the show. It's their intention. Their intention is to entertain and have a good time and have a funny video to put on Instagram, and they all have a big smile on their face at the end of the show because they had fun.
Hmm.
So what if your intention is to heal? If that's what's possible, to get up in front of a couple hundred people and act silly because you want to, through these processes of relaxing and just, you know, making suggestions to the subconscious mind, if that's possible, what about healing? You know, and
Hmm.
if your subconscious mind knows what to do to heal, maybe all it is just giving permission to take off the armor, to take the heavy coat with the rocks in the pockets off. So that's what therapeutic hypnosis is. There's nothing magical or mystical about it. It's just kind of almost reverse engineering the situation, because a lot of people, you know, um, let's say, for example, um, because it's a lot of people's issue, is speaking in front of people, speaking in public. It may have a very core issue of maybe being back in the sixth grade and getting up to do the book report or the history report, and doesn't go well, and everybody laughs because kids can be mean. And now there's an instruction within the subconscious mind, a file in that filing cabinet, that it's dangerous and unsafe to be in front of people because it won't go well. And you'll be humiliated and embarrassed and mocked. Okay, well, now 20 years later, 30 years later, you need to do the keynote speech at the conference or the speech at the big meeting at work, and you're getting nervous. Why? Because the distress signals are getting turned on because it's unsafe to be in front of people.
Hmm.
Well, you're allowed to change that. Using the emergency codes of a child to keep yourself safe may not work as an adult. May have worked as a kid, may have been the best thing you could have done, but it's not going to work as an adult. So you're allowed to change them. And again, you're the one who did that. Not that say that anybody went up there to get laughed at, or feel embarrassed, but you're the one who installed the codes, certainly unconsciously, maybe through a traumatic experience, but you're the one who did that. And again, it becomes empowering because if you're the one who did it, you can undo it. And so sometimes this work is just reverse engineering. um, dehypnotizing people because they're already hypnotized, changing their physiology because all of a sudden they realize they're going to have to do this big speech at the meeting last minute. They're hypnotized to change their physiology. So let's reverse engineer that. And again, there's nothing magical or mystical about this. In fact, the word hypnosis comes from Greek mythology and the Greek god Hypnos, who is the Greek god of sleep, because back in the early 1800s, there is a surgeon by the name of James Esdale. He was working in India. And back then, in early 1800s, they didn't have fancy hospitals or fancy anesthesia. You're having your leg amputated, you're biting down on a stick, or you're, being knocked unconscious with a blow to the head or something. It wasn't pleasant,
No.
the medical industry back then. But what he started doing, using a deep, deep, deep trance state. So you'd put people so far under into trance that it looked like they're in a coma. And then you could do surgery. You could, amputate legs and cut people open with a knife and take out tumors and sew them back up and deal with injuries and war wounds and all these kind of things. He took this process back to England, and another doctor by the name of Dr. James Braid started using it and working with it and wanting to have a word to discuss it with his colleagues and to write about it. He decided to name it after the Greek god of sleep because his coma-like state looked like sleep. So he named it hypnosis. And since then, it's grown to encompass all sorts of different kind of states of trance, altered states of consciousness, but really the biology of it is just brainwave state, literally how fast your brain is working, whether the beta, alpha, theta, and delta brainwave states, the famous ones we learned about in school. So it's really just kind of slowing down how fast your brain is working to move into this alpha brainwave state, the daydreamy state. And that's hypnosis. And by using it in a therapeutic way, you can create deep healing.
Mm. So I have an example. I've got a lot of clients that have had traumatic experiences, maybe a car accident, losing a loved
Mhm.
one in a car accident, or losing a loved one, finding them in their bed,
Oh yeah, yeah.
something like that. And they can't get that image out of their mind. It just stays there and it keeps causing that loop over and over. Um, Talk a little bit about that and how you might be able to help that.
Yeah, a lot of that is using in order to deal with that situation. There, the switch for anxiety and stress may be turned on. Maybe the volume knobs turned all the way to 10 because it's very stressful, very painful experience to have gone through something like that. And so, one aspect of that is creating a safe way of changing it in terms of turning down the volume on that. One aspect of this is just using the kind of the symbolism and metaphor of the subconscious mind. Even Sigmund Freud and Carl Jung, Milton Erickson, all these people, Virginia Satir, uh, they were talking about how the subconscious mind's language is symbolism. It is metaphor, it's allegory, storytelling. And so you're allowed to use your five senses, which are controlled by the brain, to kind of manipulate how you're reacting to this. You're already doing it. So again, it's not like we're doing anything different. We're just taking control of it by ruminating about playing it over and over again, and maybe even turning up the volume and the sensation and the color and all of it uh, to heighten your feelings of anxiety and fear and anger and resentment. You're allowed to take control of that. So again, this isn't taking away control from people, it's giving them back control. Because in a sense, you may already be out of control. If you're unable to stop this or change it, you may already be out of control. So what hypnotherapy can do is give you back that control. And one aspect of it may be in a safe and gentle way, turning down the volume in all this. And it may be something like, I want you to pretend that you're in a movie theater. You're sitting in the perfect row in the perfect seat. And up on the movie screen is an image before all this happened, a pleasant memory, pleasant image of a memory that happened before this event happened. And now I want, as you're sitting in that chair, in that comfortable chair in front of the movie screen, you're the only one there. I want you to move out of your body and go up into the projection booth. And now you're looking down through that little window in the projection booth. You're looking at yourself, who's looking at the movie screen. So now you've kind of disassociated yourself from this twice. You're
Mhm.
not in it. You're not there back in the bedroom. You're not there in the car. You're sitting in a chair watching it up on the movie screen, who's now pulled themselves out of themselves and is now in the projection booth behind a wall looking through some glass at a person who's watching a screen.
Mhm.
And now I want you to make that image smaller, and I want you to make it black and white. And I want you to run that film really quickly to the end when you get to another peaceful place. And now I want you to reverse it. I want you to rewind it. And I want you to make it smaller. I want you to make it scratched up and fuzzy. And so as you're kind of manipulating this with maybe control knobs, you're taking back control of it.
Mhm.
And as you run this film backwards, everybody kind of knows what a film backwards looks like. Everybody's walking really fast backwards and they're speaking whoop, 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 whoop. But the mind doesn't know how to run emotions backwards. So it starts to disconnect all this stuff.
Right.
And then at the end of it, you can just like squeeze it down in your own hands to the size of a pebble and throw it behind you. And this is not talk therapy, which is very important, very healing, very useful. This is something different. It's using the language of the subconscious mind, symbolism, metaphor, allegory, storytelling to change your reactions to something in the past. And that's the power of this. It doesn't mean you have to forget the person. It doesn't mean you have to forget that there was a car accident. It just means you're taking control over the alarm system and turning off the power to the anxiety and the stress it may be causing. Sort of like, okay, yeah, there was a fire in the building, but we've gotten the all clear, but the fire alarm is still ringing. The sirens are still going off. And in fact, it seems like they're getting louder.
Mhm.
Okay, well, the fire is out. Doesn't mean there wasn't a fire. It doesn't mean there's not some damage that has to be dealt with. But you can turn off the alarms. You're allowed to do that. And I think sometimes just because of the intensity of what people go through, the alarm system gets stuck,
Mhm.
because it wants to protect you. It's not, again, it's not against you. Just thinks that, okay, there may be danger around that next corner.
Right.
So let's keep the anxiety blasting. Well, what if you were to move around that corner in a more resilient, more resourceful way? There are going to be challenges in life, of course. But what if you came to those challenges in a more resourceful, resilient way? And are you not allowed to code yourself for that resiliency? Again, I'm not saying joy, I'm not saying happiness, I'm not saying everything's going to be smiles and unicorns and rainbows for the next 50 years. But what if you're able to come to the challenges of life with more resiliency, more resourcefulness, and you're allowed to do that? Just like somebody, you can constantly learn new things, constantly rewire your brain. Research shows you can rewire your brain in about, start rewiring your brain in about 5, 6 days.
Mhm.
New habits are formed according to the University College of London. Research shows that new habits are formed within about 66 days. It's 2.5 months. Start rewiring your brain in less than a week, fully form new habit within 2 months or so. Doesn't have to take years and decades. But with some practice, maybe some deep healing work, then hypnotherapy, and of course, all the other modalities that are out there, support groups and talk therapy and yoga and working out and moving your body and dance class and whatever else people need to do to move forward in life with, again, more resiliency and more resourcefulness. Certainly hypnotherapy can be a part of that team and a part of that toolbox. Because again, it's the powerful aspect of this is it's your subconscious mind, and you don't have to always let it run on automatic,
Mhm.
because sometimes those codes, that computer code was put in there by a child through the hurt and the pain that they experienced. And that may not work for you as an adult. So you're allowed to change, just like you're allowed to learn piano, you're allowed to learn martial arts, you're allowed to learn a new dance move. And every time you learn something new, a foreign language, you're rewiring your brain. You're creating new neural pathways. So create new neural pathways for resiliency and resourcefulness and joy and happiness.
Mhm.
And we're allowed to feel the full spectrum of emotions. So, yeah,
Yeah. I love the way that you use the alarm to
yeah,
explain that. I think that's so, it makes it easier to understand what exactly is going on with
yeah.
that. Yeah. And so getting into the past life, how can you help someone heal emotional wounds or challenges through like their current life using
Mm,
that technique?
yeah. And so again, this could be a 5 hour conversation and just
Mhm.
brush the surface, but obviously this is more of a spiritual concept. And the idea being that we're here on earth as souls, as spirits, to learn, to grow, to help others learn and grow. We have, the great books of Michael Newton, Journey of Souls and Destiny of Souls. He worked with thousands of people over 30 years, regressing them to the spirit state, what he called life between lives before we incarnate here on earth. And people had very, very similar experiences, even though they didn't know each other. They were from different cultures, different parts of the country, but they kept having similar experiences. And the idea is that as souls, we're here to learn, and we come with a group, our soulmates. Maybe there's one primary soulmate you have, but we come to this world to learn and to grow and to help each other. Sort of like a group of kids who start off in first grade and go all the way to get their master's degree in life for being awesome, and they grow up together. And not unlike a theater troupe who choose a play and who's going to play what role. And then a little bit later, after that play is over, they say, you know what, we're going to do another play. We need to get better at this. So let's do another play. And this time we're going to do this play in this time period with these costumes, and we're going to switch the roles around this day. And so it's just learning and growing. And it's the idea that, okay, going back to um, being afraid of speaking in public. Okay, well, maybe that happened when you were in the sixth grade. So you can remember that even.
Mhm.
So you have a memory of this that's now 30 years later, 40 years later, marking you in a way as you hold on to that hurt and pain. You have carried it through all these years, through all these different experiences, and it's causing trouble in your life because now you're supposed to get up and give the big speech at the meeting. So you have a memory of something that, even though it happened decades ago, is still affecting your life today. So what the idea around past life regression is we just make it a bit bigger than that. It goes a little bit deeper within your soul. It's like, well, what if that's happening with different lives? Not just this life and remembering something from 50 years ago that's still affecting you and causing you pain. What if that could happen with a life that happened, a while ago? And so that's where past life regression comes in, just like hypnotherapy can help with issues within this life that may have happened decades ago. Past life regression is similar techniques that may help disconnect from the hurt and pain from another life. Sort of like if somebody's doing a play in a theater group in town, and during the play, they jump off the couch in a big dramatic move, but accidentally land wrong and twist their ankle. Well, that play ends and they go on to do another play sometime later. Well, their ankle didn't heal. Now they're limping around in the new play. Not because of something that happened in that play, but because something happened in a play before. And they just brought it
Mhm.
forward into this new role, into this new part. And the idea is, as maybe, as broad as that analogy is like, well, what if you were to be able to heal that in this life? By accessing, well, how did you jump off that couch? Well, how did you land? So is this a strain? Is this a pull? Is this a break? You find out what the healing, how it needs to happen, and then you can heal. And so, really quickly in kind of 5 minutes trying to explain consciousness and time and space.
Yeah.
It can be very revealing, very healing. Not everything has to be a healing experience. It could be for more insights and discoveries about who you are, what it is you're here to learn, and how you're here to grow. But it's very fascinating, very interesting. And I think a lot of us, at least maybe in America, you probably have listeners from around the world, but at least in America, I don't think we grew up with the aspect of different lives and past lives. And this is maybe new to a lot of people, but it's fascinating. That's why I wrote the book, the Past Lives Guidebook. There's certainly great books, by Brian Weiss and Dolores Cannon and Michael Newton, and I highly recommend those books. But sometimes they just get into the stories of it. Whereas what I was interested in and learning about is more about the science behind this. Is there evidence that this is happening? What is happening biologically within the brain to access other lives? And it's fascinating. It can be quite healing. I start off the book talking about a client I worked with who healed her decades-old hip pain that had no medical reasoning behind it, been all the doctors, physical therapists. And through this past life regression that, healed hip pain I didn't even know she had because she did it herself. She even told me during the healing process that they were going through during the past life regression that she was doing it. She just told me like a few days later, oh, my hip pain's gone. It's like, didn't know you had hip pain. You didn't mention that because that's not what we were working on. Just kind of the byproduct of it. So it can be quite extraordinary and in a fascinating way to discover more about yourself and grow as a human. Yeah.
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 Yeah. So, what all do you offer, I guess? And then how do people find you?
The kind of two ways that you mentioned at the beginning, the two ways, the best ways are through the websites where you can then find my email. And I'm happy to talk to people over the phone about this. And I do most of my work over Zoom nowadays, which is a really nice way of being able to work with people because they can remain comfortable and feel safe in their homes. They don't have to travel across town. And it gives me the opportunity to work with people around the country and around the world. The kind of two different aspects of this, the hypnotherapy aspect and the more esoteric spiritual side of this. I have two different websites. One for the hypnotherapy is Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy. I live in Flagstaff, Arizona, but like I said, since COVID, I've been, like many of us who do this kind of work or talk therapy or relationship counseling or grief counseling or life coaching, something like that. We're doing this over Zoom because, again, I'm not doing anything to anybody. I'm not fixing
Mhm.
anybody. You're going to fix yourself. And people, what research shows, and again, whether it's talk therapy or grief counseling or life coaching or doctor's appointment or hypnotherapy, Zoom sessions, virtual sessions work as well as in person. In fact, some research shows it works better than
Mhm.
in-person sessions because again, you feel comfortable and relaxed in your homes. You don't have to drive across town on a Friday afternoon in rush hour traffic. And so Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy, I know it's a mouthful, uh, but if you were to go to Google and type in Flagstaff hypnosis, because I live in Flagstaff, Arizona, you'll see me come up in the search, Arizona Integrative Hypnotherapy. The other one is Sacred Mystery Hypnotherapy, and that focuses more on the past life regression, the more spiritual side of things. And the book is Past Lives Guidebook, which you can find on Amazon. And yeah, happy to talk with anybody more about this stuff. It's fascinating conversation. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And you have a way of explaining it that and putting it into something that's easy to understand
Thank you.
and maybe grasp. And so I really appreciate that about you. And I think that, I encourage people to look you up. And if they think that this is something that might help them, absolutely to pursue it or at least have a conversation with you about it.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, and it's a big topic. Again, we could probably have a 5 hour uh, episode and still just kind of touch the surface of it, because really what we're talking about is subconscious mind. We're talking about consciousness. We're talking about time and space and spirituality
Mhm.
and the soul, and so it's very deep and but it's fascinating beyond belief. And maybe that's why we're here. We can take a bit of our time and investigate this a little bit more. And so yeah, anybody has any questions about it, I'm happy to email or text or talk over the phone and talk more about it.
Excellent. Thank you. And looking forward to the book. I think
Yeah.
that, just the example here of you explaining these things, I'm sure that the book is very practical and would be very enlightening as well. So thank you.
Yeah. Yeah. And I came into the book as a true believer and a skeptic at the same time. And it's kind
Mhm.
of who I am. And so I kind of wrote the book for myself, being curious about could this possibly be true? It's sort of that X-Files thing. I want to believe. And so I set out to kind of say, well, what is it? Is it possible that this is true? And so I went through research and science and consciousness and time and memory and remote viewing and all sorts of different things. And you'll see the conclusion at the end of the book if you're interested. So,
Yeah. Yeah. And I love that, you've brought some science into this for, people who are skeptical. And so they should be, so
yeah,
they should be questioning what they're doing and what kind of tools they want to access. But for sure, I love it when people do the work.
yeah, yeah.
So thank you for that. And thank you for your time today. I
Oh,
really,
you're welcome, Angela. Yeah, I appreciate it. I love talking about this. It's fun. And as you can tell, I can go on and on and on and on, so you can imagine what the book is like.
yeah,
So
I
uh,
think it'll be
it's
great.
a fun conversation.
Yeah, thanks again. And I want to
Yeah.
thank everyone for listening, and bye for now.